Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are in the world. We will get started in roughly a minute and a half at 1:01 p.m. Eastern Time. Please be patient with us as we prepare for our broadcast. Thank you. Once again, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on your location. We will get started in 45 seconds at 1:01 p.m. Eastern Time. Please be patient with us as we allow everyone into the Zoom platform. Thank you. All right, I have 1:01 p.m. Eastern Time. Let's go ahead and get started. Thank you for joining us today for our LPF webinar titled Peeling Back the Layers of Security to Mitigate Threats, sponsored by Prime Secured. My name is Matt Schreiner, and I am the Senior Director of Operations for the Loss Prevention Foundation. I will be your host today. Before we get started, we would like to thank Prime Secured for being a valued LPF partner and for sponsoring today's session. So let's talk about a few logistics items. First and foremost, this session is being recorded. A link to the recorded will be sent out tomorrow in the post-webinar email that you'll receive. Everyone is muted. Audio is available through the webinar portal and the dial-in number provided when you registered. And we do ask that any and all questions you have, you enter them into the Q&A box within the Zoom platform. We will hold those questions until the end of the presentation to ensure that we're able to get through the material that has been prepared for you today. So let's meet our distinguished speakers. As you can see, there's some additional information on your screen about each one, but first off, we have Tyler Graham, Security Systems Engineer with Prime Secured. Good afternoon, Tyler.
Good afternoon.
Next up, we have Brian Freeman, Vice President of National Accounts with Prime Secured. Good afternoon, Brian.
Good afternoon, Matt. Always a pleasure to be with you, sir.
Likewise, my friend. And at this time, I will turn it over to Brian and Tyler to take you through their material.
Okay, great. Thank you, Matt. Going to steal a little bit of your line and also echo your sentiment to everyone joining today. Good morning, good afternoon. And thank you very much for joining us to discuss layered, or as our friends at the LPRC call it, zonal security. And we're going to look at how it can help you to achieve a safer, more secure retail working environment. As Matt indicated, I'm Brian Freeman, VP of National Sales for Prime Secured, and I'm joined today by my colleague Tyler Graham, who is the Security Engineering Manager. And on behalf of the entire Prime Secured team, I want to thank Terry, Matt, Ashley, and Paul for all you guys do at the foundation and for the retail industry. It really is great, the work that you guys do. Okay, so who are these folks at Prime Secured? Well, Prime is an IT, IP-centric security solutions provider. You know, with the sophistication of the technology that's available today, it's no longer about hanging a camera, installing a card reader. You need to understand how that all goes together from a network and systems architecture perspective in order to get the return on the investment and the operational security system that you need to effectively protect your customers, employees, and those physical assets. It also requires a quality installation and quality documentation. And that's something that Prime Secured consistently delivers on, so that we'll meet that requirement, and which results in an extremely strong working relationship between us and our clients. As you can see there, we've got over 20 years of successful business operation, 260 plus employees. We're doing business nationally in all 50 states and staying pretty busy right now with over 700 projects completed in the past year. Okay, we should probably get started. We've got a lot of ground to cover. I think, Matt, you can confirm that we've done, I think, 3 or 4 individual webinars on some of the topics we're going to be touching on today. And for this one today, we're going to try and fit it into one session. So we're gonna move along rather quickly here. I've been saying for a while that retail could use a break from the troubling times it's been experiencing for the last couple of years. You've got COVID, civil unrest, ORC, inflation, supply chain issues, driver shortages, fuel prices, workplace violence, low prosecutorial levels, and rising internal theft. And before I depress everybody, I should probably, I'll just stop there. Somebody told me when I was younger, and I'm old now, so it's been a while ago, but I think it's still true, that you need to focus on what you can control. Put your energies and your resources where you can utilize and manage them. And that's how Tyler and I will be approaching our conversation with you today. We know that we have a bit of a mix in our audience today. And we know that there's some complexity to getting a seamless layered security view of your operation. As you can see from this slide, there are a lot of moving parts that go into a security foundation. And there's also notifications that need to be made on the backside of that. So there's a lot at play here. And we also know that we've got a mix in our audience with regards to roles and responsibilities. We've got folks, I'm sure, with your job is the store side, others who have corporate campus, and those of you that also have the distribution center and fulfillment center areas, and some of you who have to do a bit of both or all 3 of those. Tyler and I are sensitive to that. We get it. We understand that there are some unique applications depending on where your responsibilities lie. And so we're going to do our best to talk about applications today that can be utilized in all 3 of those particular disciplines. But I will tell you, there are going to be times when we're talking about things that are just specific to the distribution center or just specific to in-store. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Tyler and have him talk with you about why this matters and why it's important to you. Tyler, all you.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. So when we talk about the layers of security, we have this onion of security. The idea is they all will complement each other and allows us to both be prepared, counter the threat, and then to minimize our consequences. So they do all work together, and there are, depending on the severity or the how important a particular asset may be for you, would be how much you actually implement. So I'll walk through the different layers, and the idea is just to get things stewing in your mind on what would be important in your facility and what you can deploy. So when we talk about deter is the outermost layer, and deterrence would be at your perimeter. These could be gates, barriers, creeks. Often old days would be our moat with your alligators in it. You could have more psychological barriers like video surveillance. If you have cameras on the perimeter that would tell people, your attackers, that you do signify that the site is being protected. So there's a lot that goes into just setting up deterrence. Then the next layer would be to detect. So you do have a bad actor that has breached your outer perimeter. You want to be able to detect that. And depending on the severity of your infrastructure and what you're trying to protect, you want to be able to detect that depending on how far out. So there's different technologies that allows us to detect people who have breached the perimeter. And that could be out in the perimeter, or that could be at the edge of your building as well. So this could be motion detectors, LiDAR sensors, could be ultrasonic detectors, radar. So those are the different types of detection that we can do. Most often it does employ technology when we detect. The next layer would be assess. Okay, now we've detected the breach. What do we do with it? We need to evaluate how big of a breach it is, and what do we do? And that'll come back into respond in a second. But we need to assess what our breach has been. The next layer would be delay. We want to make the attack as difficult as possible. So this would be hardened locks on the outside of your door, or preventing people from coming in. So this would be security through architectural design, bollards, reinforced windows and doors. So that's the delay. We want to make it as difficult to come in. Now, again, this is speaking generally. We have to evaluate what it is you're trying to protect and how much you actually put in. And then respond. How do you respond to this? So this could be your standard operating procedures, your policies you have in place, the training that you do. And we'll talk about training here in a little bit, but your response should be something that you have planned out, because the body can't go through something the mind hasn't gone through. So you need to have a plan in place on how to respond to your bad actors. And then just deny, flat out deny the breach, and get them away from what it is we need to protect. So that is the overall the onion of security, and how you would apply those to each other.
All right, super. Thanks, Tyler. Appreciate that. I think fair to say the more of this you do, the fewer problems you will have, right? And we'll get into depth in that a little bit further here. So it wouldn't be a webinar with the LP Foundation without a poll. So our first question: what security measures do you utilize at your perimeter? For those of you on the store side at your parking lot, certainly that's an impact for those of you at the DC as well. What are you utilizing? Is it guard tours? Is it video surveillance? Nothing, because nothing bad's ever going to happen. Fencing or access control gates. And Tyler, I'm betting money that video surveillance is going to come up number one here. What do you think?
You think so? Oh man, I really hope in places that can use fencing, I'd like to see that. It's a simple deterrent that can also delay the approach as well.
Okay. Well, Matt, how are we doing there?
Well, Tyler, you're dead
Man, you nailed it. No fencing at all. Okay, fair enough.
But this is interesting, though. I think this is very telling. And we'll try to incorporate that into our discussion here today, because you've got video surveillance, which typically more of a forensic type of tool, right? Unless you're monitoring it at the 724 and or getting good alarms off of it, where you have people who are there, as you mentioned, that can respond to what it might be. So my thanks to everybody in the audience for your responses, and this is great. Okay, well, let's go to the perimeter, or zone 4, as it's called. So based on what I said earlier, so right from the start, we're gonna have a discussion that starts to show that some of the differences between the store side and distribution center corporate side. So as you know, the store side is typically going to be comprised of a general parking area with shipping, receiving on the back side of the facility. And these areas, I'm not going to lie, they present problems, and they're difficult to control. At the back of the store, it's a good idea to have cameras installed to view the access road and your receiving doors, and you should take care of that as well on the internal side with camera views looking at those points of entry or potential points of entry. We want you to be in a position to be able to track and monitor your property and define limits of where you want people to be able to have access. And you want to deter people, as Tyler has mentioned already. Put up signs there for them to that not today, pal, kind of thing. And certainly, if there is an issue, then you want to know about that real time and not find out about it the next day that there's been a problem. Some of the other things you can do in that back of store, if you would, there are now strobes, very effective strobes that are available that can be linked with a camera and detect motion and an alarm with sound and light and audio announcements to ward off potential intruders. And card access, I mean, don't forget the simple things, right? Card access is something that is a definite plus and definitely is an easy step to take to continue to harden the facility. The parking lot and curbside areas, as I'm sure this group has seen, and all of us have seen the videos more than we would like. These areas can serve as staging areas for ORC efforts. It's also a place where 14% of accident claims occur, and a place where associate safety tends to be at a higher risk. Now here, video is certainly helpful from, as I mentioned before, from that forensic perspective, but what else can you do to help prevent or prosecute acts that, bad actors, other than, you'd have to be monitoring those video feeds live. So portable trailers are out there now. I think you've all probably seen those. They seem to be catching on to where, put that portable trailer with cellular communications. You've got solar power going to it, cameras and connectivity to have those deployed in the parking lot. And here again, a visible deterrent, but also an active means to collect information for responders to deal with. They're portable, so you could, if you happen to work for a firm that has multiple stores, you have the ability to shift those trailers around if the problem is moving around, or if you have stores that perhaps thieves have been targeting on a consistent basis versus some of your other locations. You can also consider license plate recognition, or LPR. There's been some great improvements in that to make it a bit of a more lightweight solution, if you would, from a deployment perspective. And think of it as, if you've got a group of cars that roll up in almost in sync, if you would, to your curbside or storefront, you'd be able to have those cameras capturing that license plate information to be used for case building and future apprehension. And I don't want to forget about, here again, it's like Tyler said about fencing, and that's adequate lighting outside in the parking lots. It's a simple fix, but one that can certainly act as a strong deterrent. Tyler, all that being said, what do you think? Video surveillance with audio to listen to escalating sounds in the parking lot, a duress button in the front of the store, LPR. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, video surveillance does seem to be the most universal item that can be used, because it works for both proactive monitoring if you have a guard in the store, and if you're not able to use fencing, so like in a storefront like the photo, you need your store to be welcoming, and if you have fencing out there, that it creates an issue that your customers would have to balance. So that's where the cameras can come in. So the cameras can be served as proactive monitoring, for someone who's a guard. There's also some analytics that you can apply. So like you'd mentioned, there's loitering analytics that can tell if a car or several cars have been parked for too long. You can play an audio announcement. So if there is a group of people, because you can detect the difference between a car and a person or a group of people, you can play an audio announcement to say, please evacuate the area, or please leave the area, because loitering is not allowed. There's also then the forensic side of it. So if something does happen, you can have it all recorded on video, which can be very helpful to help prosecute or track down who those people were so they don't do it again. And then you did mention duress buttons. I think duress buttons, and we can get into that a little bit here on the training and the response side, but duress buttons can be helpful because it's the fastest way to get police response is via a button, because the button is going to tell emergency dispatchers the address and that something's going down. So if you're not able to pick up your phone and dial 911, or you don't know the address or where you are, et cetera, then that can really help expedite emergency services.
Okay, super. Thanks for that, Tyler. Now, for the distribution and fulfillment centers, a different set of issues. But in the scheme of things, they're probably a little bit easier to control because, as we were just discussing, you don't have this the need for that open, welcoming environment for people to come into your facility. You can stand it up and say, "Don't you dare come into my facility." So that does make things a little bit better, but still certainly with some challenges. Typically, your distribution center is you're going to have a larger perimeter due to the footprint there. Typically, they're going to be near interstate highways. So people get in, get out, get lost on the interstate, and along with your goods. So fencing, as we've been talking about, it may sound old school, and it is old school, but it's probably still around because it works as a deterrent, as something that slows people's ability to get in, and which then gives you added time to be able to respond. But it does require attention. Tyler and I have both been to distribution centers where the fence is in a bad state of repair, almost laying down in sections. We've also seen places where the roadway or the non-secure side was above the fence line, where it made it very easy for someone to gain access to jump the fence. So. And you can add an additional layer to just that standard fence. Some of you who have been around a while probably are familiar with microphonic cable that can be put on the fence fabric to detect climbing, cutting, or digging of that fabric. More recently, there are fiber optic solutions out there that you don't have electronics out on the fence, so they're very resistant to any environmental conditions such as lightning. You don't have to have any electronics there, and you can also pinpoint where that intrusion happened to a much better level. You can use the fiber to accommodate. Typically, you're going to run 24 strands in there, so you can utilize that fiber to operate your cameras as well, so that you have that cue and slew to an alarm effect, and can give those first responders, either internally or externally, an idea of where the last position of entry was for an intruder. The other thing you can do is deploy LiDAR. You heard we were talking about LiDAR before the call, and that's another one of the webinars that we did just on that topic. Originally put together for self-driving cars. But now it's being used in security and operations as well, and it is an outstanding solution to track not people and vehicles that are in unrestricted areas. So not only identify them, but track them in combination with cameras that you would already have deployed on the site, and do all that with a very low false alarm rate. And So for those of you who are unfamiliar with that technology, we've got a short video we want to play for you to give you a better idea on how that works.
Quantigy's LiDAR sensors emit eye-safe laser beams that illuminate objects in view. The beams are reflected back to the sensor, where the time of flight is measured to create a real-time 3D point cloud image. Objects are then classified, tracked, and analyzed to detect and respond to unauthorized intrusion into sensitive areas. Current LiDAR solutions for the security applications market are 2D, detecting only in a flat plane. Quantigy's LiDAR sensors use multiple beams to detect in all 3 dimensions in real time to provide superior accuracy and much more insightful and actionable data. The Cortex Smart Perception software is also compatible with leading video management systems and cameras, allowing organizations to leverage their existing investments by incorporating them into Quantigy's flow management platform. This results in state-of-the-art performance for perimeter detection at substations, data centers, gas facilities, and VIP residential areas. Approach detection for shipping and transport, retail parking lots, and correctional facilities. Rooftop protection for commercial buildings, hotels, casinos, and banks. Quantigy's perimeter intrusion detection system sets a new standard in protecting our world's sensitive areas.
So hopefully that gives you a little bit of an idea of how that works. The lasers that are operated in that solution, are non-threatening to the human eye, but you've got great reach. You've got the ability, as mentioned in that little clip there, to depending on your video management system, to integrate this with your existing cameras and video management system to get that 3D view and really get a strong layer of protection going both. You can utilize these both inside for tracking issues, as well as you saw in the video on the external side. Adding to the risk management list for DCs are shipping and receiving lots and the employee visitor parking lot. These are areas of friction between individuals, as well as areas of opportunity to remove goods from the site through internal theft or driver theft, or associate perhaps partnering with drivers to collude to steal goods. And as I think everybody on the call knows today, goods at rest are goods at risk. So Tyler, going back to you again, what types of solutions would you recommend here for securing driver areas so that there's no free roaming around the back of a distribution center or fulfillment center, or pedestrian gates as we see viewed on the slide? If you could talk to that for a minute, that would be appreciated.
Oh, sure. So the whole idea here is we need to be able to communicate with these people, like the drivers. They need to be able to come in, sign papers, do what they need to do. But then also we don't want them to have unfettered access to the building. So that's where we would need to create a barrier, or in this case, you're going to delay them into the building. And so it's an example of something that would typically be at the exterior perimeter. You'd bring it in to the edge of the building. So things like this is kind of where we talk about secured entry points. We want to be able to control who can come in and out of our building, mostly in. And so that's via access control. You could use video intercoms if you want to use technology and allow them to come in, but then they come into a secured area, and where they cannot go any further than that. So you would need like a card reader to continue on through the building. So that can be done through doors, or in the photos here, we've got turnstiles that allows, also prevents tailgating. So if you had an associate go through, you don't want a driver or a non-associate to go through, then turnstiles prevent that tailgating from happening. Does that help out?
Yeah, that does. Thank you. So to kind of summarize that a little bit, what we've been going through here. So controlling the access can keep terminated, disgruntled employees from returning to the site as well, and gaining entry. There have been numerous incidents of workplace violence that frankly could have potentially been thwarted if these types of measures had been in place. Okay, so continuing our journey, we've come into the parking lot. Now we're making our way into the store or the distribution center or the corporate office. So before we do that, let's go to our second poll question. And for this one, what are you doing to secure lobbies and office areas? And you folks on the store side, I'm sorry, this is one of those times where it's probably more specific to your colleagues on the corporate and DC fulfillment center side, but what are you doing? Lobby guard or an attendant of some sort, an intercom keypad phone to gain access? Are you utilizing weapons detections, turnstiles, or none of the above? So let's see where we come out here. What do you think, Tyler?
I would imagine intercoms, keypads, and phones are going to be the majority.
Yeah, you got to figure the first or the second one, right? Is probably what's going to be coming out there. So we'll give you a moment to fill that out. Yeah, there we go. Wow, that's none of the above is interesting. But it does line up with some of the research that we've seen with regards to lobby security. And Tyler touched on it earlier in the call today about the environmental design aspect. I'm wondering if those of you who put none of the above are operating in facilities that are maybe a little bit older, maybe designed at a time when it wasn't a concern. You didn't think that you had to worry about that sort of thing. We see it with the lockers at a distribution center or fulfillment center, the employee lockers, where they're on the non-secure side of the facility. And in today's environment, you could have weapons that are in a backpack that are stashed in that area, and you'd have no way of knowing about them. So we might have some solutions for you as we conclude our presentation today. But thank you again for the response. So entrances and lobbies. I mean, it used to be that an attendant and a sign-in book was all you needed to manage employees, visitors, vendors, as they made their way in and out of your facilities. And that's just not enough anymore. That is the bad news. The good news is that there are solutions out there that are available that can assist you in securing these critical areas and without making it look or feel like a correctional facility. And here's some examples here of deployments that we've done that, nice, clean look and feel to them, and also easy access. So we know you need that throughput, but for employees to get to the floor or get to their office to begin their workday, these can be set up to where you can still have a high level of security and do so with a high throughput level as well. Tyler, I think the majority of our audience likely has video in place, but talk to us a little bit regarding about how they can coordinate that, what the video is capturing for them, how they can coordinate that with turnstiles to add that extra layer of protection to these entry points.
Yeah, this kind of comes back to access control, and what would really advocate for in this type of scenario is if you have turnstiles, you have access control, and your access control system, so electronic access control system, would be to connect the video surveillance with the access control system, whether it be through an integration or the next step above that would be a unified platform, which brings all of those layers into one platform. And this helps for a couple of different reasons. The biggest one is forensic. So if you can link activities, so card read, access granted, access denied, if someone were to force the barriers open, it would all be tagged back to the video. The other things you can do that's becoming more prevalent is you can do either facial recognition. So if you recognize someone, you can deny them access or grant them access. So having the systems connected together allows you to use technology to better interface with your lobbies or entrance areas.
Yeah, and that allowing access component to it, we also put together at the peak of COVID. We were asked by a client to integrate a temperature device, if you would, so that when an associate came in, they were getting their temperature measured prior to their card read at the turnstile, and if they were below threshold, we were able to deny that credential, so that they would then be turned away and would have to talk to someone and make arrangements per that client's policies for what they would need to do before they their credential would be cleared. So here again, other layers that you can add in through a bit of collaboration and conversation to mitigate your risk and keep a safe and healthy workplace environment. Unfortunately, we can't have a discussion regarding security and safety without talking about weapons detection. It's an emotionally charged issue, I know, and for sure, but one that needs to be addressed. You need to keep your employees and customers safe. And I'm not saying that weapons detection is the only avenue to do that, but it is a brick in the wall. We will touch on some other actions that you can take later in the presentation. But right now, we'd like to show you a short video of a solution that's available that can go a long ways towards helping you with weapons detection, but keeping that throughput of associates into the facility as well. Oh, looks like the video got a little, oh, there we go. Okay, guy's got the biggest pockets in that coat of any guy I've ever seen. Those of you who are, as part of your daily routine, are involved in that layer of screening that goes on, you've all dealt with it, right? It's shift change. It's you got people coming in, people going out, and you find your personnel are doing nothing but managing false alarms and that sort of thing. And this is some relatively new technology, but already widely deployed. The unit that you saw there in the video is battery operated. The CHEA does now have a powered hardline powered unit as well, but there's no cabling. They're very portable. So if, like during COVID, when there were times that, to keep the safe distancing, I'm sure some of you had to open up other doors for egress and whatnot. And it was a way for some of our clients to be able to manage with flexibility those types of things. So, and for, as I mentioned earlier, if you're in one of those older facilities where the room is tight and you don't want to tear up the flooring or the walls in order to have to run cable like you would see with traditional weapons detection systems. This is a very simple, easy, and high detection, low false alarm way to solve that problem. So, okay, A couple of other items. Here again, you've got card access on cages where tools are kept, batteries, etc. So that's just something that front of mind, that there are ways to do it cleanly, and add that extra layer. You want secure entry and departure, as Tyler touched on earlier, and you want to be able to monitor the goings on there. Couple of other items to consider, and those would be address buttons that we've mentioned before, and mass notification. These are excellent tools to notify law enforcement and personnel that of a critical situation. But as with all of the components that we've discussed today, they lose a lot of their benefit if they're not part of an emergency operation plan. They will tell you something, obviously. They'll tell you you have a problem, but do you and do your staff know what to do when that occurs? And Tyler will be touching on that here in just a minute. We wanted to share these next couple of slides with you to show you what you can do inside the DC and inside the store with discrete cameras. This first one on the right-hand side, as you can see, you're getting those of you that work in the DC fulfillment center side, it's a very low light environment when you start looking in the back of the trailer. And we installed this camera inside of metal conduit. So the drivers, the associates at the shipping and receiving dock were unaware of it, but we're able to get a good shot all the way down inside the trailer to monitor for the goods at rest, if you would, to make sure that things are going where they're supposed to go. The next image that you'll see, using the same camera, we used a 3D printer and put it inside this housing. Now, those of you on the store side, that overhead cameras, the strip cameras behind the counter, strip cameras at the exit, between sunglasses, hats, hoodies, the associate behind the counter blocking the strip camera view, you don't get that money shot, if you would. And we put this together, and Tyler, I'm gonna have you touch a little bit on the engineering and the science, but before you do, this has got kind of a periscope look and feel to it, but this was 3D printed. This could have been a flower pot. It could have been a hamburger. It could have been anything nondescript sitting on the counter. And I can tell you the facial views that we got with this, full head to toe, extremely clear as they've made the entrance and are making their way to the counter. But as I mentioned a second ago, engineering and science is involved, and that's why Tyler's with me today here. So Tyler, if you could talk about what went into this, I think our audience would find that of interest.
Yeah, this was a fun project because it was solving a problem that everybody had but didn't know how to handle. And on top of this, they had a request of seeing what was happening at the pin pad card reader, the credit card reader, without actually seeing the pin that the person was typing in. And so it had multiple benefits, but you're absolutely right. With the advent of these micro cameras, it's actually just an image sensor in the body of the camera is elsewhere. It's underneath the countertop there. But this is ultimately one of the designs that we came up with. We did come up with some more covert designs that had cameras built into the candy bar stand. The idea there was be nondescript, but also get a good picture, because this is going to be pretty close to the same field of view or point of view of the cashier, this person standing behind the counter. And that was kind of our objective behind this, is we need something that's small, nondescript, can see the card reader, can see the person using the card reader, see their face from the point of view of the cashier. And so that's how we ultimately ended up with this. It is modular, so you can add and subtract pieces from it. It's different colors. it's custom ordered. So we were able to develop this, and ultimately we're able to achieve the end result that the customer was looking for. So it's kind of a fun project.
Yeah, it was most definitely. And I had forgotten about the point of sale opportunity there as well to identify skimming. So it was a nice 1-2 punch. Okay, we're wrapping things up here a little bit here. Final poll question as we move into our final topic. How often do you run training drills on your emergency operation plan? Once a year, twice a year, after an incident, or never? And Tyler and I are both, I think, fair to say we'd love to see twice a year be at a minimum be the dominant answer here, but we'll see what you guys come up with.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, great.
Oh,
Twice
good.
a year. That's awesome. That's awesome. The never is a tough one, but we're going to talk about that as well. But for those of you that are doing it with that level of frequency, you're definitely on the right path. The key to creating a truly effective workplace violence critical incident plan is asking what if, and then putting tools, procedures, and well-trained and well-practiced personnel in place, and updating that plan regularly. It's got to be a living, breathing document. Not just a report that sits on a shelf somewhere until there's some type of catastrophe. You just hate to see that. Tyler mentioned it in his opening that human beings will respond to their level of training, and otherwise they're going to panic. When that happens, the results tend to not be extremely positive. So ask yourself and your management team the following question: Are we aware of, or should we be aware of, any standards of care, industry best practices that our failure to comply with could create a liability for our company? So have I thought of everything? Have I done everything that I can to have a secure store or corporate facility or distribution center? The financial, put the human side to the side. We all can be, I think, unfortunately, be desensitized to that, given the amount of times that it seems to be occurring. But there's also a financial cost to it. So, hey, that we can't afford to put these types of measures in place. The numbers would go against that. I've seen numbers for a death at a workplace due to workplace violence, whether it's domestic violence that rolled into the workplace or a disgruntled employee, between damage to reputation, turnover because people no longer want to work in an environment like that, lost production time because that scene has now become a crime scene. It is upwards of $4 to $7 million. We encourage our clients to assess where your faults are and how to address those gaps. You've got to plan, you've got to train, and I think an item that gets overlooked is the de-escalation training. This is true not only in a store with your associate on customer. We've all seen the rise in the aggressive nature of the encounters between shoplifters or just customers who are upset or get upset in today's environment more quickly, or associate on associate types of things. So this is something to put in your tool belt, and there are programs out there that you can utilize to help not raise the level of threat, but do things to diffuse the situation and bring it back under control. Okay, we're getting close to wrapping things up here. And Tyler, I thought it'd be a good idea for you to review a few takeaways. So if you can kind of go through this.
Absolutely. So a couple of takeaways after talking about the layers of security would be doing a site assessment. There are third-party companies out there that do site assessments. They typically don't have any push to what they're going to sell you. It's like a home inspection. They'll come out and tell you where your vulnerabilities may exist, and they'll question you. They'll do an interview. What are your priorities here? Because ultimately, you have to understand what you're trying to protect before you can do an assessment. But get a site assessment done. Some police departments actually offer this too as a service. Schedule maintenance. So I've been on several sites where just the equipment, non-electronic equipment, is in poor repair. Brian mentioned fences that are laying over, gates that don't latch, doors that don't shut. Have those items maintained, because neglecting to have a door that closes and or latches could be an easy vulnerability point that could easily be mitigated by preventative maintenance. Equipment placement and protection. A lot of times the electronic hardware that runs the access control or the physical security equipment is put in a vulnerable position. And the movies can allude to that a little bit, where they'll just shut off power to the video surveillance and now it's no longer recording. So if your DVR is under the front desk or behind the counter, it's easy to take that and it's no longer valuable. So protecting the equipment and having it in a secured location is something to evaluate, something to think about. And then kind of what Brian was talking about is active shooter and then critical incident plan. So yes, the body cannot go through something the mind has not, and going through an active shooter response plan can be very advantageous to your associates, to your people, and that allows you to be prepared. Also, something of note that OSHA actually classifies an active shooting as a workplace injury. So it puts the liability back on the company. So if you can show that you've done training and you do training and people know how to respond, it's very helpful. There are programs out there, so you don't have to develop this from scratch. Programs like Run, Hide, Fight, and then Alice are two that are out there, pretty commonly known. And the other thing that I've learned too from doing active shooter events is just it allows people to recognize what gunshots sound like in their facility. There may be some concerns like, oh, that sounds scary, or we might scare people. Well, that's the idea, is we want people to be able to identify this, a little bit of stress inoculation, so it's not so scary. When they do hear gunshots, they don't panic. They can then put their training into place and know what to do. And that comes back, the next one is there is training, is train, but you have to have something to train on. You need a standard operating procedures. You need policies in place that allow you to have something to train on. So these are things that we would encourage for anyone to focus on who's considering or concerned or wants to take physical security of their property and assets, and take it seriously.
Okay, yeah, Tyler, you reminded me of something about where the resources that they could go to not have to reinvent the wheel here. The Department of Homeland Security is also available to provide you with information there. So, all right, well, thank you again, Tyler. We're about up on time here. So on behalf of Prime Security, I want to thank you all for your time today. It's a lot to cover, and that just highlights the challenges that you face. We didn't even touch on exception reporting or case management or a laundry list of other items that you folks are responsible for every day. But we hope we've been able to provide you with some takeaways to help you manage your daily responsibilities. Everyone's situation is unique, and we've learned over our 20 years of business that discovery and collaboration are the best approach to solving a problem. Identify the issues and then find the technology to solve it rather than the other way around. If you'd like to discuss your specific issues in more detail with us, please reach out to me and we can have a conversation. You can find us on LinkedIn or my phone number's there, whatever works. Give us a call. If we're able to provide you with some assistance, we'd be happy to do so. Matt, I know we're getting a little short on time, but I see we've had some questions come in. So let's see if we can provide some answers.
Sorry about that. I was on mute. Go figure. Leave it to technology. So
some people would say that's good with you, Matt. I don't know.
Fantastic. Great presentation. And I just want to call out that the strategy of defense in depth is nothing new to the industry, but it is valuable and it is necessary both in the cyber world and in the physical world. And Prime Security has offered you several different methodologies to improve your defense in depth, to mitigate and reduce the amount of risk and exposure an incident may cause to you and your organization, your staff, and your customers. So great job, Brian and Tyler. And we do have some questions. With limited funding, what layer or layers are the best for me to invest in for my organization?
Tyler, I'll throw that to you.
Well, I think I would come back to one of our best practices. There would be your scheduled maintenance. It'd be kind of a toss-up between scheduled maintenance and site assessment. But what you have currently, if you can keep it maintained, that's going to be the best use of funding. And then it kind of comes back to what your priorities are. Because access control can be very important to keep people out of your facilities. But then, as we were talking, video surveillance is a very universal for both pro and past. So I know it's not any one thing, but I think those would be the hot topics that I would probably focus on.
And I do think.
Oh, I'm sorry, Matt.
You're good. I just think that it takes a little bit more information, right? You have to evaluate what the pain points are and what you're really trying to solve based on the evaluation of your organization and where your biggest risks and exposures are. And that's where Prime Security can come in and help you out in evaluating where you should be investing those funds.
Right. Yep. Well said.
Next question is, what is more important, access control or video? That's a tricky one.
That is a good one. Here again, it depends, right? I mean, if your goal is to keep someone away from what you hold dear, I'm going to say access control. A camera is not going to, it's not going to stop me. Studies have shown that, after a while, it's no longer, the deterrence level tends to drop. But with access control, I can keep you out. You can't get in. Tyler, where you sit on that?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's controlling access is what it is. So yeah.
Absolutely. Next question. Do you all have a recommendation or a location, such as a website, to find new and innovative devices and tools like the ones shown today?
Ooh, not right off the top, other than just like a general search, Oh,
shameless plug here.
I'm a little slow on the uptake.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I know a guy. The LP Foundation. Great point. My bad. Great resource.
Absolutely. And
stay on top of your game with regards to the latest and greatest technology. And you're living and breathing retail all day long, every day. So great call out and a good hit, Matt.
And there are other great organizations out there. You have RELA, you have NRF Protect, you have LPRC.
Yeah.
But if you're looking to evaluate solutions, the webinar platform that the Loss Prevention Foundation has, if you're a paid LPF member, you have access to all the recorded webinars for all of our providers. So please check us out, consider becoming a member so that you can access and review those recordings. Next question, and that'll probably be it on time. How often should we conduct training on our emergency operations plans?
Well, as often as you can, Tyler.
Yeah, if you practice fire drills and tornado drills, you should probably practice your emergency response plans the same amount of frequency. They're, you know, there's research that's shown that with the advent of fire protection and fire mitigation, buildings don't burn down anymore, and yet we still practice fire drills. Maybe not so much in a retail environment, but in commercial spaces we do. And the prevalence of things like active shooters is becoming more than not. So, and it's a long answer to a short question, but I would say as often as possible, and as often as you do your other drills that you think are important.
Right, and engage local law enforcement too on that. Let them
Yes.
let them know what your plan is. Let them know where, if you know, Tyler mentioned run, hide, fight. Where's the hide? Let them have a better idea on where personnel would be trying to conceal themselves and things of that nature. So, okay, good stuff.
Absolutely. And I do want to thank Prime Secured for sponsoring a discount code for all of our attendees today. So if you're interested in taking one of the Loss Prevention Foundation certifications, you can save 20% off. We will include this in the post-webinar recap email that you'll receive tomorrow. That promo code is layered, all in caps, and that will be valid through July 31st. And also 5 random attendees will be selected for LP certification course scholarships, either the LPQ or the LPC. So be on the lookout for that email tomorrow, as you might be one of the lucky winners. Thank you for joining us today. We look forward to having you on future LPF webinars. Stay safe. Have a great day.
Thanks, everybody.